Thanks, Tim, and thank you to Share Cafe for having me on again. We just jump straight to slide 3, please. So for those that I feel like, as much as I always talk about Elementos, it's always good to talk about tin. It is not a metal that's super well understood. I think tin foil and tin cans are still the first thing that comes to mind for most people. But what tin, its major use is now, is electrical solder. Solder is the glue that holds together all electrical components. And clearly, as we move into a green infrastructure and EV world, there's more circuits in absolutely everything. This is a bit of a study, this slide here, done by MIT University and Rio Tinto, presented a few years ago, which basically showed tin was going to be the most sensitive and the most impacted by our move to these green technologies. And certainly that is what has been supported or shown in the recent movement in the tin price. I think what surprises a lot of people is the fact that it would outrank or be more sensitive than many other metals that people would consider technology or battery metals. One of the reasons for that is tin is such a small market. It is described as the spice metal casually, which effectively just shows, like salt and pepper in a menu. Salt and pepper is probably in every single dish on the menu. Tin is in nearly every single electrical component, even if it is not mentioned in the quantities of some of those other components. So next slide, please. Obviously, this increased demand has driven the share price to the tin price to all-time highs. The London Metals Exchange price went over 50,000. We've fallen back to a nice stable level, about 43, 44,000 at the moment. And that is purely from this demand that is growing very strongly, and the fact that supply is dropping off and struggling to be maintained even at current levels. So the other thing I'll just point out, this is a London price. Obviously, it also trades in Shanghai, and it trades about $10,000 higher than what's shown here. So certainly a lot of strength in the tin price from what it was a couple of years ago. Next slide, please. Just on the drop-off of supply, the major suppliers are listed here on the left: China, Indonesia, South America, Myanmar. Not much security supply for global off-takers there, certainly looking for additional supply. And then on the right here, there's a slide that shows quite clearly that those traditional major producers are struggling to maintain their current output and certainly are dropping off in many instances. So next slide, please. So what that drives us to is this slide here. This is data from the International Tin Association, which shows by about 2025, we're going to have a 50 to 70,000 tonne deficit in the market. That includes projects like ourselves coming on and other junior and mid-cap miners who are trying to get their projects up. Even with those projects coming up, the International Tin Association is predicting a significant gap of 50 to 7,000 tonnes. And that is on a market size of about 360 to 370,000 tonnes. So very significant. The International Tin Association upgraded their traditional long-term growth rate from 1.8% recently to 3 to 4%. That is their conservative number. They also think that has opportunity to grow even higher, creating even larger deficits. So it's a market under stress, like many of the metals right now, and certainly going to play a role to fill that gap. Next slide, please. So our major asset that we're completely focused on right now is the Aurapaisa Tin Project. It is in the south of Spain. It's in the province of Andalusia. Andalusia is where you want a project in Spain. There's major miners operating there, and over 50% of Spain's mineral revenue comes out of there. They're very supportive of miners and very supportive of major projects, including open cut mining projects, unlike other places in Europe. Some of our neighbours, Sandfire just bought in recently to the Matza mining complex, which is 60 k's from us. The first Quantum's mining there, also the Rio Tinto copper mines being mined since Roman times. So big open cut mines in the region, a lot of support. So if you flick to the next slide, please. We picked up this asset in 2020. Since then, we have done a major drilling campaign. November last year, we announced a significant increase to our mineral resource, which is 50% increase, leaving us with just under 19 million tonnes of resource at 0.4% tin, which is a very handy resource for our open pit mine. And we identified a lot of mineralisation close to surface. Next slide, please. So that led us to doing an optimization study, which really rescoped the throughput of the project. We're now, and we just released these results to the market a couple of weeks ago. We're now planning a 1.25 million tonne mining rate. That puts about 1 million tonnes through the front of the plant, and that produces about 3,350 tonnes per annum of tin metal to enter the market. Next slide, please. So some pretty handy MPVs here. Our current market cap's about $150 million. We have a couple of assets. Certainly, this is the major asset of the company. Using pretty conservative tin price assumptions, you probably remember the current price we're looking at is about $44,000 in London right now and $54,000 in China. Re-ran the basis of our study at $32,000. Just to make sure we will be financially viable through all parts of the commodity cycle, even if we believe the tin price is going to stay significantly higher. And we've got some pretty nice MPVs there, even using conservative numbers. Obviously, if you start using anything close to spot, we have a very, very good-looking project there. So if you flick on to the next slide. We also very pleased to announce start of March, we got named in the Andalusian government, which is the province we're in their state significant project, or as they call it, their project accelerator group. It's a very high profile group to be part of. Most of the other miners in there, Sandfire and the Rio Tinto guys, they all have billion-dollar companies and billion-dollar projects. So for us to be named there as a small junior Australian miner, certainly shows a great deal of support from the government. And subsequent to that, in early April, we also just submitted our mining license application and our environmental impact assessment study. So certainly great timing for us to get this big tick of government support just as we go into our assessment period. Next slide, please. So from moving forward from now, we do go into our definitive feasibility study. We're well progressed with a lot of our technical disciplines, which have already been maturing on site, got all our geotech drilling done. We're finishing off some pilot plant test work right now to confirm our flow sheet, although it's already very mature, as well as dewatering studies and the rest of it, just kicking off tailings dam design and a number of programs of work like that. So well advanced in that, but we're really going to be starting to kick off our detailed mine planning exercise and should soon be engaging with some EPC lump sum type process plant contractors, which make up a majority of our 2/3 of the capex of this project, with the goal of having all those studies done and the approvals back during 2023, hopefully in the first half, and then moving into 2024, moving the project into construction and then further into operations. Next slide, please. We are a multi-asset company, though, as I said. So while our majority of focus is on our Aurapaisa project, we do have our Cleveland project in Tasmania, which is a very interesting project in its own right. It was an operating tin mine till 1986, when the tin price pretty much went to nothing overnight when the Malaysian cartel went into liquidation. It's got a 7.5 million tonne resource there. It's also got a very interesting tungsten resource, which has been tagged at about 250 metres worth of depth, so something we're quite interested in. Next slide, please. As well as being in a very known tin province, and I guess metals province in northwest Tasmania, we are looking to expand this mineral resource. We actually have the drill rig spinning right now on site. We're onto our 3rd out of 5 holes, drilling targets not only within and surrounding the current resource, but we have 4 drill holes in the purple zone shown here, drilling along strike. So for us, identifying that extra mineralisation and then obviously moving into a resource phase and then into mine planning and studies, certainly a focus for us. A couple of years behind the development of our Spanish project, but certainly something that's very exciting to us as well. Next slide, please. So from a corporate point of view, Tim covered this briefly, $150 million market cap. With our last announced cash position was $3.9 million. We have significantly more cash in the bank than that, which I look forward to announcing in our quarterly, following a number of options which have been converted. So yeah, well funded through the end of the DFS. Our shareholder base there is also shown. Our major shareholder is our non-executive chairman, Andy Gregg. And if you move on to the next slide, I've just got a brief summary. Andy's a big supporter of the company, as I said, our 12.5% shareholder. He ran Bechtel's Metal and Mining division for 13 years. And for those that know, Bechtel's US's biggest engineering construction firm. As well as that, we have Brett Smith, who's currently the Executive Director of Metals X, has certainly got some good tin knowledge on our board. He's on as a NED. We also have Calvin Tracy and Corey Nolan. I will not speak up, give you Corey's bio because he is presenting after me for Platina Resources, but certainly got a very experienced board there and very focused on moving this into production. Next slide. I think we're probably done. All right, Tim, I'm happy to finish there.
Thanks, Joe. Always good to hear from you.
Yeah.
Just in regards to the tin price, we've seen, lithium and nickel go through the roof, and obviously it had a very strong tin price as well. Do you think the current tin price reflects how much tin goes into an EV?
EV is certainly one of the uses. So an EV car has about 8 times as much tin in it than a standard vehicle. So that's significant. But there's a number of other technologies all associated with green infrastructure. One of the major growths that the International Tin Association is tracking is solar wire. So that is a wire that connects all the solar modules within a panel. It's a copper wire, flat copper wire surrounded by tin. And that has actually increased China's demand on tin by about 20% in the last couple of years. So a huge growing market. They think they'll add 75 tons of tin for every gigawatt hour of solar panels produced moving forward. So there's some huge demand increases coming, and we see the demand side growing very strongly.
Yeah, it seems like the market's playing catch up here in regards to tin compared to, say, lithium and nickel. In that regard, though, lithium projects have kind of seen some government funding, and then you've kind of got the critical minerals equation, which is supported by or government funding. Where does tin sit in relation to Elementos potentially being able to get access to government funding?
Yes, unfortunately, tin doesn't sit on the Australian government's critical minerals list. We're not exactly sure why. All the fundamentals should have it on that list, but it is on the US government's critical minerals list, has been for many, many years. So we certainly see the US investing strongly offshore. There's no known tin mines or tin production in North America or any that are actually operating or in development. So certainly their investment, as we know, the US is looking to invest offshore. So certainly, everything from the relationships between the Australian government and the US is also able to invest in any country that has a military agreement with, and that does include Spain. So not only the US, the EU, as you know, is really trying to secure its raw material supply. There's a lot of good policy coming out of the EU right now, and we're working as closely as we possibly can with the EU government to try to get some of that support through to our Aurapaisa project in Spain.
And that was the next question, kind of how do you plan to fund the transition from being an explorer to becoming a producer?
Yeah, hey, we're well funded through the end of the study. Obviously, at the end of the study, we moved pretty clearly into project financing. We're not looking to stress this project in any great way. We will be looking to do traditional project finance facilities, 50 to 60% gearing. That's really the levels we're looking with. We're really trying to keep this a European story, though. We're certainly wanting to talk to European banks as much as we can, get European offtakes. There's just such a demand right now to keep that raw material supply in Europe. That is our number one focus. But certainly, Europe and the US and to some extent other countries have a lot of agreements between them. So Europe's our number one focus for the Aurapaisa project for sure.
Makes sense, Joe. That's all we have time for. Obviously, you've had a very successful 12 months, and we'll get you back on in the near future.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Okay, thank you.